but you doubt, oh, it may be because of this lady, or it may be because of this man, he may be responsible, he may be responsible. You see? It may be due to a ghost, it may be due to a devil, so I must do this, do that. It's too much doubt. When you have doubt, too much doubt, for example, in me, and then I look at you, I say something, which you can't hear. Because you have a lot of doubt with me, you will think, okay, Geshe is saying something very bad to me. But I may be reciting, Om Mani Padme Hum. You see? It is in your mind. So the purpose is to develop, to stop unnecessary expectations, doubts. Second practice is purifying the negative deeds. If you do not want suffering, when you experience suffering, it's a reminder saying that if you don't want suffering, then you should give up the causes of suffering, which is wrongdoing, which is negative actions. So you should be able to recall this when you experience suffering, and then you should adopt and practice the 4 antidotal powers to get rid of your wrongdoings. Number 1 is called the power of removing, or power of banishing. That means you should develop very great regret to the wrongdoings that you have done in the past and try to remove it. And then you should develop the next power, which is to say that I will not repeat the same wrongdoing again, even at the cost of my life. And then third is called the power of the basis, which means you take refuge to Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, cultivate bodhicitta. So this is like if you are traveling alone and there's a lot of risk in your life, then you take the help of somebody who's stronger, you see. So likewise you take refuge in Buddha, Dharma and Sangha and cultivate bodhicitta. And third is called the antidotal power, applying the antidotal power, which is meditation on emptiness, which is the direct antidote to ignorance. So meditation on emptiness, or reciting certain mantras and so forth. So through the practice of the 4 powers, you should purify the negative deeds.
What was the third power?
Power that is called applying the antidotes, which means meditation on emptiness, reciting mantras. Reciting mantras.
Can you please read the third one? I didn't get it.
Third one is the antidote, the power of relying on the basis. That means taking refuge in Buddha, Dharma and Sangha and so forth. Yeah.
No, okay.
Yeah. Okay. The third practice is called making offerings to the evil spirits. Making offerings to the evil spirits. That means you do some puja and offer some food, and you should say that I am thankful to you because you have assisted me in my cultivation of bodhicitta. Because sometimes that somebody does harm, then you are inspired to do more practice from that sense. And so henceforth I expect that all the sufferings of sentient beings will ripen upon me. So in this way you make the supplication, and you can make that food offering and meditate on love and compassion. And you should say that I will try my best to benefit you temporarily and in the long run. But you should also do one thing. That is, you should not be sitting there disturbing people who are doing spiritual practice. Okay? The fourth practice is making offerings to the Dharma protectors. by making offerings to the Dharma protectors, you will be able to dispel the obstructions of Dharma practice, and you will be able to easily actualize the facilitating factors for your Dharma practice. And that will also help you to be able to practice whatever comes in your way. Okay? Whatever be the situation, whatever be the condition, you may be able to practice your mind training. For example, if you encounter acute harm or from the evil spirits or from the enemies, then you should think that it's not only me who is experiencing this pain and suffering, but in the whole world there are so many people who are suffering much more than what I am suffering today. And instead of obsessed with your problem, you should think, pity. So how many people are suffering? You see? So develop more compassion towards them. So that will help also reduce your personal pain and suffering. When you get too obsessed with your own personal problems, the pain and suffering tends to get stronger. But when you think more about others' pain and sufferings, even if you are having pain and suffering, it tends to get reduced. So whenever you see other people suffering, or other sentient beings suffering, whenever you see other sentient beings and people developing very strong afflictive emotions, and you should at least mentally aspire, how nice if these people are without that suffering, how nice if these people are without those negative emotions, how nice if I have the capacity to take all of those sufferings and afflictive emotions upon myself. So in this way, again, this will help you reduce your unnecessary expectations and doubts. The fourth point of the mind training is integrating the practices for a single lifetime. How would you, in a nutshell, undertake this practice in one lifetime? So there it says, train in the 5 powers. The 5 powers themselves are the great vehicles. The great vehicles precept on the a lot of difference. But this Tibetan text says the essence of the instruction is the 5 powers. The essence of the instruction is the practice of the 5 powers. So what are the 5 powers anyway? First power is called power of motivation. So that means if you want to do this as a lifelong practice, then you can do it through this practice called the 5 powers, out of which the first power is called the power of motivation. So motivation is very, very important. So here you need to develop motivation, thinking that I will ensure that I am not separated from the practice of these 2 bodhicitta, the conventional bodhicitta and ultimate bodhicitta, for this month, for this year, and until I die, and until if possible, until I achieve enlightenment. So you need to make that motivation. It's not that I will do this practice when I am happy and not when I am suffering. Okay? So develop this motivation. It's like recharging the battery. Very soon you are going to darkness. So you need torch, you need light. So you need to charge the battery. Second power is called power of habituation. power of familiarity. That means it's not enough to know. It's good that you already know conventional bodhicitta and ultimate bodhicitta, but it's not enough to know. You need to make your mind habituated with these practices. It's not enough that conventional bodhicitta and ultimate bodhicitta are there somewhere in the mind of the Buddha. You have to have this in your mind. And for that you need to practice regularly. So that's called power of habituation. The third is called the power of the virtuous seed. That means as a seed to further develop these two minds, you, as much as possible, you need to collect merit, as we said already. Okay? As much as possible. Because if you are collecting the merit means, like for example, if you are inviting a very, very great person, okay, in your room, then you need to clean your room. If you're inviting a very important guest, you need to clean your room. Make sure there are good fragrance around, flowers around. You put some flowers also here. Okay? That you cannot keep the guest in the darkness. Make sure there's enough light. So many things you need to take care. So similarly, when you are inviting these two very important guests, conventional bodhicitta and ultimate bodhicitta, you need to accumulate some merit so that they are fit to come in your mind, just as you are preparing your room for the guests that you are inviting. So that's the meaning. The fourth is called
The third,
hmm?
the third one.
Merit. Cultivating merits. Merits.
Cultivating merit.
Also here.
Yeah. Of course. Because now we are summarizing how to do this practice in one lifetime. The fourth power is called power of banishing or removing. That means as and when the self-cherishing attitude thought arises, immediately you need to recall that this self-cherishing attitude mind has brought all kinds of sufferings to me from beginningless time, and it is bringing suffering to me in this lifetime also. And as a result, it contributed towards committing a lot of sins, and it obstructed me not being able to do Dharma practice as I wish. It's all because of this self-cherishing attitude. So therefore today I will kick the self-cherishing attitude out. I will send him far away. The fifth is called the power of prayer. After having done all these virtuous practices, then you pray that may my mind never be separated from the practice of these two bodhicittas. Whatever misfortunes come in my life, may they all become a supporting factor for these practices. So in this way you pray. Okay?
So the fifth is praying.
Yeah, power of praying. Praying means not just repeating the mantra. Of course you repeat the mantra, but the main prayer is you are wishing.
It's a dedication.
Not dedication, but wishing,
Kavana.
aspiring. May these things happen, may these things doesn't happen, You aspire something, you wish something. Then the next, it again says, if this is how you would practice in one lifetime, how would you practice it at the time of the death? Again you would use these 5 powers at the time of the death. Also, if you are somebody who is very familiar with these practices when you are alive, then you can easily do that at the time of death also. So that's why he is saying the five powers themselves are the great vehicles precept on the transference of consciousness. That means transference of consciousness means when you die, when your mind goes to the next world, cultivate these paths of practice. That means again you do this, do the practice of these five powers. Meaning that if you are somebody who has been training this for a long time, and then suddenly if you are seized by fatal sickness and illness, and then the order of the practice of these five powers may be a little bit different here. So first you recall the power of the virtuous seat, which is collecting the merit, and that is, since now you know you are going to die, so you make, you offer your belongings and wealth and things like to the Buddha or Lama or in whatever way you are going to collect merit, so that when you die you have nothing left to crave. Normally, there are even stories of one monk. When he was passing, he had a lot of attachment to his religious robe, and then later on he was born as a snake in the religious robe. So it's possible when your mind, if you have something left behind, then your mind may get obsessed with it. So that's also another reason not to collect too many things. You see? And then you do the second practice, which is the power of prayer. Make the 7 limb offerings to the 3 jewels, and then pray that when I pass through the intermediary state and in all the subsequent lives in the future, may I be able to continuously train my mind in the 2 bodhicittas. May I be able to continuously meet those great teachers who would teach, who has this capacity to give teachings on this mind training. So make intense prayer. The third is power of banishing. That is, as I explained earlier, again you are reaffirming your determination to banish the self-cherishing attitude. Knowing how this has brought suffering to you in the past and how it is not giving you peace right now, and even right now I suffer so much because of my self-cherishing attitude towards this body. But when you examine neither in the body nor in the mind, you can find a self which has independent inherent existence. So why so much grasping towards that self? And with this kind of practice you can also reduce the fear of grasping towards the self. Then next is the power of habituation. And you should at that time, although you may be suffering, having a lot of pain, but you should try to recall the practice of the 2 bodhicittas which you had been doing when you were well. But how much you are able to do that practice at the time of death or when you are in trouble is how much practice you were doing when you were well or in your daily life. If you don't do any of these practices in your daily life, nothing will come at the time when you are facing problem, when you are facing death. It is impossible. So the time to do practice is now. Okay. Then the power of motivation. You develop motivation because now you are dying, so you should develop motivation saying that I will do these practices even during the intermediate state Okay, when you die, then go into the intermediate state before you take the next life. You make this motivation to do this practice of the two bodhicittas during the intermediate state also, in the pardo. Then next is the power of habituation. You should recall the practice of the two bodhicittas that you did earlier, and in terms of your physical conduct and posture, at the time of the death, you should make sure that you sleep on the right side of your body. Okay, and the right hand should be placed on the right cheek. Right cheek should be placed on the right hand, and then the small finger should block the air coming from the right nostril, and then breathe from the left nostril, and then meditate on loving kindness and compassion, and undertake the two practices of giving and practice while breathing in and breathing out. And then you should clearly recall that whatever birth and death that we experience within the samsara, or whatever be the state beyond the samsara, these are basically the perception of your mind. And if you look at the mind also, it doesn't have inherent independent existence. You cannot pinpoint it. So you experience almost like a kind of vacuity, okay, which is like the nature of emptiness. And then you make sure that your mind stays in that state of voidness, emptiness. So it is in this state, while meditating on the two bodhicittas, maintaining your mind on the state of that vacuity, you transfer your consciousness, you die. And even in ordinary life, it is recommended that when you sleep on the right side of your body, which is called the lion's posture. And if you sleep on the right side of the body, it will be easier for you to breathe, number one. Breathing will be easier. You can do that experiment also. And your sleep will also be thin. You'll be able to wake up quicker. But if you sleep, the worst is sleeping face down. And also sleeping like this, not so good. Also left side. And in my case, when I do sleep on the back, I'm sorry, I must tell you this. It's a die-hard habit, But you can test this, if you sleep on the left side, you can easily notice, at least in my case, breathing becomes more difficult for me. If I sleep on the right side, breathing is much easier. I've noticed this. But in your case, maybe, I don't know. You experiment this. But at least this is what is recommended in the Buddhist teaching. The fifth point is the measure of having trained the mind. Now, since you have been doing all this training, now you need to know how successful you are. So this is the measure of having trained the mind. If you have trained the mind well, then these are the measures. You should be able to know that. Integrate all the teachings into one thought. That means the purpose of all the teachings of the Buddha, whether it's Sutra, whether it's Tantra, whether it's Hinayana, whether it's Mahayana, the purpose of all these teachings is to destroy self-cherishing attitude. And if your practice is not becoming a counterforce against the self-grasping and self-cherishing attitude, then all your practices are useless, wastage of time. And this is a very powerful statement, you see, because these spiritual practices should not be a ceremonial, traditional sort of practice, which you do whether it's useful or not useful. As we have started by saying that since we want the highest peace and happiness, we do not want any fraction of suffering and difficulty, so therefore we are thinking and doing this practice. And the source of all the sufferings and problems is self-cherishing attitude and self-grasping. So therefore all the teachings that the Buddha gave will primarily boil down on the point of cultivating the two bodhicittas and the point of banishing the two obstructive factors, self-cherishing attitude and the self-grasping mind. So that's what he's saying. Integrate all the teachings into one thought. Or it could also be translated as saying that the purpose of all the teachings boil down to one point, one thought. So whatever practice you are doing, if it is becoming an antidote to the self-grasping and self-cherishing attitude, then it is a clear sign that the mind training is really happening in your mind. So whether your practice is hitting the target or not can be judged by seeing this, whether it's really harming and diminishing the intensity of your self-cherishing attitude and self-grasping mind or not. So whether you are doing a good practice or not, there can be two witnesses. Others as the witness and yourself as the witness. But out of the two witnesses, the most important witness is yourself. Others will not stay with you all the time. Others will not know what kind of thinking is going on in your mind. So you should do your practice in such a way that you do not have to regret and repent. So that's the meaning. Primary importance should be given to the two witnesses. That means there are two witnesses. Out of these two, the primary importance, I think this is wrong translation. Primary importance should be given to the two witnesses. Out of the two witnesses, importance should be given to the one which is your personal witness. Okay? Out of the two witnesses, the main witness is yourself. That's what he is saying.
So how many witnesses are?
Two. Two men. Other people and yourself.
Okay.
For example, if you are like reciting some mantra, doing some chanting, the other witness, based on other witness, other people might say, oh, he's a good Dharma practitioner. But they are not sure what you are doing in the rest of your life, you see. Oh, somebody who is wearing a monk's robe, they might think, oh, it's a very great monk, you know. But not so sure how I live my life. It is only known to me, not known to you. You see. Okay. Good news. Short break.
How long is she last so we know when to come back?
15 minutes. 15 minutes? No, half an hour. Huh?
15. What do you say? What do you say?
The time is, it says, similar to the timetable on the
Half an hour.
15th, so half an hour. Okay.